A defensive line can take weeks to build. Trenches dug, fields of fire measured, every weapon pointed at the one direction the enemy is expected from. And it can be made worthless in about 30 seconds, not by destroying it, but by walking around the side. That's flanking. And almost everyone gets it wrong. It has barely anything to do with sneaking around the side. The side is just where it ends. What actually wins is closer to a magic trick. Get it right, and a smaller force can break a larger one without ever meeting it head on. And by the end, you'll see the day one man did exactly that and erased an army nearly twice the size of his own. A position is built to face one way. The best weapons, the prepared cover, the measured distances, all of it points at the front. Attack there and you walk into everything they planned for. That's why frontal assaults cost so much. You're throwing yourself at the one direction they spent all their effort making strong. Turn 90 degrees. The same cover that stops rounds from the front does nothing from the side. A sandbag wall is a wall from one direction and an open doorway from the other. The machine gun covering the road has an arc. Swing past the edge of it, and the gun is just a heavy object someone now has to pick up and reposition under fire. A trench is brilliant against fire coming down its length, and a death trap against fire coming across it. Everything that makes a position strong from the front makes it fragile from the flank. You're not hunting for a gap in the wall. You're hunting for the direction the wall was never built to face. There's even a word for firing down the length of a line instead of across it, enfilade. Fire across a line and a miss is just a miss. Fire down its length, and every round that misses the first man has a chance to hit the second, the third, the fourth. One burst can rake a whole squad end to end. A flanked line doesn't get attacked evenly. Why? It gets unzipped. You cannot flank an enemy who's free to turn and face you. If they can simply pivot to meet your move, you've achieved nothing. Now you're attacking their front again, just from a new angle. One element fixes. It pins the enemy in place, opens fire, applies pressure, makes it look like the main attack is coming straight at them. It usually isn't trying to win, and that's the thankless part. Those men take real fire for an attack. They won't be the ones to land. Their whole job is to hold attention, to keep the enemy's weapons and eyes locked forward. The other element maneuvers. While the enemy is busy with the force in front of them, it moves to the exposed side. The fixing force is the only reason that's possible. Take it away, and the enemy simply turns, and your flank becomes a fresh frontal attack against an alert defender. Pin them with one hand, hit them with the other. Most failed flanks die right here. The fixing force is too weak. The enemy senses the feint, and they turn before the real attack lands. Flanking usually defeats a unit long before it kills most of them. Picture it from the receiving end. You're dug in, facing forward, trading fire with whatever's ahead of you. And then rounds start coming from your right. Then from behind your right. The cover you trusted is suddenly pointless. The men beside you are getting hit from a direction nobody's watching. You don't stop to calculate that only a single squad has worked around your side. Your body registers one thing instantly. We're surrounded. We need to leave now. Units break and run while they still have ammunition and men. Not because they were destroyed, because the position became unbearable to hold. A frontal assault asks the enemy to die in place. A flank hands them a reason to abandon the place entirely, and a unit that's up and running is one you can finish at almost no cost. Knowing where the flank is and actually reaching it are two different problems. The maneuver element has to cross ground to get to that exposed side, and during the move it's at its most vulnerable. Strung out, off its objective, not yet set. 3 things make it work. Concealment, dead ground, tree lines, folds in the terrain, anything that hides the move until the last moment. Timing. You commit while the enemy is most distracted by the fixing force and arrive while they're still pinned. And tempo, the instant you reach the flank, you don't admire it, you hit before they can turn to face you. A flank spotted early is just 2 forces standing in the open. A flank that lands while the enemy faces the wrong way is a massacre. The whole maneuver is a race between your movement and their realization. In 1863, at Chancellorsville, a Confederate general named Stonewall Jackson took an entire corps, tens of thousands of men, and marched them for hours along a hidden route around the side of a much larger Union army. The whole time, the rest of his force kept the Union front busy, fixing it in place. By late afternoon, Jackson's men stepped out of the woods on the far end of the Union line, the exact direction no one was watching. The soldiers there were cooking dinner, rifles stacked. They never formed a proper front. The line didn't hold and trade fire. It came apart and ran, regiment after regiment folding up from the side. That is every principle so far in a single afternoon. A fixing force out front, a concealed march to the open flank, and a unit that broke not because it was wiped out, but because it was hit from a direction it was never built to defend. If flanking were free, every battle would just be a contest of who flanks first. It isn't, because good defenders plan for it. They refuse a flank, bending the end of the line back on itself, so there's no clean side left to swing into. They hold a reserve, kept out of the fight on purpose, ready to rush toward whoever appears on the flank. And they post security on their own flanks, so they get a warning instead of a surprise. There's also the oldest danger in maneuver warfare. The flanker gets flanked. The moment your maneuver element commits to the enemy's side, its own flank and rear hang open for anyone they held back. Send a force around the enemy, and if they were ready, you've handed them the same opportunity you were trying to take. That counter, catching an attacker mid-maneuver, deserves its own breakdown. If Chancellorsville is the principle done well, Cannae is the principle taken to its limit. In 216 BC, Hannibal faced a Roman army that outnumbered him, by some counts close to 2-1, so he did something that looks insane. Instead of putting his strongest troops in the centre, he put his weakest there and let them slowly give ground. The Romans surged into what felt like a collapsing enemy, pushing exactly where they wanted to go, certain they were winning. But as they poured deeper into that sagging middle, Hannibal's strongest infantry on both wings held firm, and his cavalry, having cleared the field, swung around behind. The Romans had pushed into a bag, both wings folded inward, the rear sealed shut. An army that was winning by every measure it could see was, in fact, completely surrounded, fixed in front, enveloped on both flanks, and closed off from behind all at once. What followed wasn't really a battle anymore. It became one of the worst single days of killing the Roman Republic ever endured, inflicted on a force that, minutes earlier, believed it had the smaller enemy beaten. That's flanking. Cannae is just the version where every piece of it happened at the same time. Most failed flanks fail in the same predictable ways, and every one is something we've already seen. A weak fixing force, so the enemy turns to meet the real attack before it lands. Telegraphing the move, so it's spotted early and becomes two forces standing in the open. Bad timing, so the flank arrives after the enemy is no longer pinned, neglecting your own flanks, because you were so focused on their side that you forgot you have sides too. And swinging wide straight into the reserve, they held back for exactly this. The thread through all of it. Flanking was never really about the side. It's about attention, fixing the enemy's attention in one direction so you're free to act in another. Get that right, and the geometry does the rest. Get it wrong, and you've just split your force in front of an enemy who's ready. The same logic scales from 4 men taking a tree line to an entire army group swallowing a front. Fix them in place. Move to the side they're not watching. Hit the direction they're not facing. That's how flanking actually works.